For those who don't know, Bret Hart recently launched a new series on his website called Confessions of the Hitman, which sounds like someone who turned rat against a mob boss. Season 1 is available now, 35 episodes for $35 Canadian. I think that works out to be $25 US. Plus, I guess there's new episodes that drop every week. And it's a series talking about his childhood, talking about his career, life after wrestling, and then, of course, he gets into current events as well. On the latest episode, he explained how he rates his personal rating system for wrestlers, what he thinks makes a good wrestler, including in-ring ability, mic skill, looks, and he scores each category on a scale of 1 to 10. Hat tip to Wrestling Inc., by the way, for some of the write-up of what he talked about here, because I was not even aware that he was doing this. But Bret rated himself this week against Hulk Hogan, and the results were very interesting. Hogan, he said, had an unbelievable look. He would give Hogan a 9 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10. That's how good of a look he said that Hogan had as a professional wrestler. I guess, hairline aside. I think Hogan was probably balding out of the womb. But he would give Hogan a 10 out of 10 on promo ability. But on his in-ring skills, he would give Hogan a 2 out of 10. So according to Bret's personal ratings scale, he would rate Hulk Hogan, he would grade Hulk Hogan as a talent with a score of 22 out of 30. Now, I don't know if Bret ever saw Hogan work in Japan. I would imagine he did, because he was probably on some of those same shows, where Hogan worked. Like in 1990, they did some kind of joint show, I think with SWS it was called. I don't know if Hogan was on that show or not, but maybe he never did. Maybe he never saw Hogan work, in Japan. I think you got to give Hogan a little more credit than that as an in-ring worker. The thing with Hogan is he knew his audience. He knew what he had to do and what he didn't have to do, at least here in this country. Like in the States, he wrestled a certain style and he got away with it. As long as he delivered the Hulk up, right? The big comeback, the big boot, the leg drop, and then he posed. That's all he had to do. In Japan, he had his working boots on. No leg drop. He used to finish guys with the axe bomber. I mean, Bret is my all-time favorite. Hogan was when I was a kid. But Bret's my all-time favorite. I respect his scale. My own personal scale, I would probably go 5 out of 10 for Hogan in the ring. Just because I've seen what he is capable of, and I think a lot of people would be shocked if they saw what Hogan could do. And I also think Hogan was a great seller. I think Hulk Hogan was a great seller. And I think that even though I absolutely hated it when he would no-sell someone's finishing move, he did it to Randy Savage, where he would just, pop right back up after 3 elbows. He did it to The Undertaker at Survivor Series when he just got right back up after that first tombstone. Not the second one. That was the one where after he told somebody to go get his wife and kids on the phone, I guess because he thought that this could be the end. But I mean, he did it to Flair, he did it to Vader in WCW, he no-sold the powerbomb, which was ridiculous. I hated that. Hated that. But, especially in his prime years, the heel would get heat on Hogan and he would sell his ass off. Like he did with Andre at Mania. I mean, obviously he wasn't going to piss off Andre, but I think he deserves credit for his selling as well, and that would be part of your in-ring ability. Bret too. Bret Hart was an incredible seller. He sold a beating like he was really getting his ass kicked. You really felt like this guy was getting his ass kicked when you watched a lot of his matches. But 22 out of 30 is not a bad score for Hulk. Now, grading himself. This is where it gets interesting. On look, Bret admitted that he didn't have the kind of build that Hogan had, but he would give himself a solid 7 out of 10 on look. He says he doesn't think he had a bad look. He thought he was pretty fit. He was pretty strong. He says he had a decent gimmick. Then we get to the talking aspect, and he admits that that was his weakest attribute. He says, I did get a lot better. I had some great mic moments in my career. I mean, even in WCW, for God's sake. Who can forget El Dandy? The promo with Mean Gene, come on. The promo with Mean Gene Okerlund in the back on Thunder or whatever show it was. And he's talking about, you know, the cruiserweights. He's talking about El Dandy. You're a great wrestler. And Gene Okerlund's like, El Dandy is in the cruiserweight division. He goes, who are you to doubt El Dandy? He's a great wrestler. He's got great technical prowess. Oh my God. I point to certain promos whenever somebody tries to argue that Bret Hart was a terrible promo, and I say, you are a terrible wrestling fan because you clearly missed a lot of really good stuff back in the day. You clearly missed all of 1997. And you clearly missed some of those gems from Bret's run, the only redeeming things he really ever did in WCW. I cannot take you seriously if you believe that Bret Hart was like an awful promo. He was not a great promo, but he was not an awful promo. And then the third category. Can this guy wrestle? He says on that, he would give himself a 9. I could wrestle anybody, any shape. You could put me in there with big guys. I could wrestle Andre. I could wrestle Roddy Piper. I could have a great match with just about anybody, which is true. So then let's add all of that up. 7 out of 10 on look. Let's go 5 out of 10 on the mic, since I think he said he would give himself a 4 or a 5. We'll say 5. And 9 out of 10 for in-ring ability. So Bret Hart would grade himself a 21 out of 30. But he would grade Hogan a 22 out of 30. So he actually graded Hogan 1 point higher than himself. Now look, nobody can debate the fact that Hogan was a far bigger star than Bret Hart was. And his place in the business was more influential. Hulk Hogan is one of the biggest stars of all time, ever. He's on Mount Rushmore. You don't have to like the guy, but he's on Mount Rushmore. If Bret added a grade for star power, Hogan would win 10 out of 10. That cannot even be debated. But just grading it on the 3 criteria that Bret uses, I never thought that he would grade Hogan higher than himself. But there it is. An interesting debate for sure. Everybody will have their own criteria for how they rate different wrestlers. There's really no right or wrong answer. But just hearing that come from Bret himself, I thought, was very interesting.